Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of textual study of the Quran. Today we'll start off with verse 169 and see how the ordeal of the battle of Uhud, which was being discussed in our previous sessions and in the previous verses, it continues in this section as well. And the important thing is that the Almighty wanted to expose weak Muslims and the hypocrites among them, so that they come to the fore, and at the same time the Prophet was directed that even though these hypocrites and even though these weak Muslims are there in your ranks, but you need to still forgive them, give them respite, and keep consulting them in the affairs of state, because there is still a chance that some of them might mend their ways. So clearly we can see how the Almighty operates with His people in this matter. He gives them the utmost chance as far as it is possible, and if there is even a semblance, a slight chance that they may reform themselves, so they are not deprived of this opportunity. So precisely for this reason, the Almighty said that these people who had disobeyed the Prophet and who actually were the cause of that defeat should not in any way be left out from consultation. Also, we see that in this battle, it was the directive of the Prophet that was not followed. Initially, Muslims, they were winning, but when they saw that, or some of them thought that they have won, they left their places. A particular battle post in the rear was left vacant, and these people who left that place, they thought that they had won the war and they wanted to have a share in the spoils of war, and thus the victory, which was initially notched up, actually turned into a very horrific defeat. As far as the effects of the Battle of Uhud are concerned, they were far-reaching. The hypocrites, they got a further chance to stir this propaganda, and they would often say that as far as this defeat is concerned, it has nothing to do with any moral principle or related to God in any way. These are based on strategies, victories and defeats. They come and go, and if you have a good strategy, you'll win the battle, otherwise you'll lose it. And then they would also say that as far as these Muslims are concerned, they cannot be in any way, their Prophet cannot be from God, because had he been from God, he would not have suffered this loss, because how can God make His prophets and their companions suffer a loss, and that too in this way? So on that occasion, the Almighty has said that as far as the law of God is concerned, it does not make any distinction between believers and disbelievers. If they disobey, then they will bear the consequences of this disobedience. So we continue with our with this approach, and the comment which the Quran has said is continuing, and the words are وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ مِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ أَلَّا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Do not pay heed to these things, O Prophet, and whoever have been slain during this war for the cause of God, and never regard them as dead. They are not dead. In fact, they are alive in the presence of God. They are being well provided for, pleased with what God has given them of His blessings, expressing joy about those they left behind who have not yet come to them, that in this eternal kingdom of God neither is there any fear for them as well, nor shall they ever be sorrowful. So clearly what the effect of these battle could have had, and the influence and the impact, that is being lessened, and that is being actually done away with. And the Quran in a very eloquent way has tried to reassure the Prophet and also the companions that people who have lost their lives, they should not in any way be regarded to be killed. They are in fact martyrs, and regarding martyrs, it has to be understood that they, when they pass away, they have a sort of life in the land of Barzakh, in the area of Barzakh, and they receive glad tidings from the Almighty. They are looked after by Him, and this is not the same as the rest of the people who are generally put to sleep, as well as some other people against whom the truth has been totally unveiled, that they are punished also if they deny. So this punishment continues for them in the land of Barzakh as well. But for these people who have been martyred for the cause of God, the assurance sounded is that they are not dead. In fact, they are living and in the presence of God, and they are being looked after by Him very well. And then, of course, glad tidings that they give to those who are left behind. وَيَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. And what are those glad tidings? That there is no fear for them in the future, and there will be no sorrow in any way for them. So this is a very repetitive sentence of the Quran. You can often see this word or this sentence in the rest of the Quran, and basically it refers to the life of paradise, because you see, this life of our world, it is plagued with sorrows, and it is plagued with regrets of the past and sorrows and fears of the future. So a life of paradise has been described as a place in which you will never have any regret of the past, and you will never have any fear for the future. يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ وَأَنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Rejoicing in the favors and blessings of God, and rejoicing that God shall never waste the reward of the believers. الَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِلَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْقَرْحُ لِلَّذِينَ أَحْسَنُوا مِنْهُمْ وَاتَّقَوْا أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. The reward of those who, even after being inflicted with loss, answered the call of God and His Messenger, those whom among them who were thorough in their deeds and feared God shall be richly recompensed. So, of course, these are the glad tidings that are being given. And then it is said, الَّذِينَ قَالَ لَهُمُ النَّاسُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ جَمَعُوا لَكُمْ فَاخْشَوْهُمْ فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. They are those who, on being told by people, the enemy has mustered a great force against you, so fear it, grew more in their faith on hearing this, and replied, God is all sufficient for us, and He is the best of protector. So, if you look at the corresponding historical facts regarding this particular verse, that when people told them that the enemy has once again gathered to have another round with them, and they have gathered a large army, instead of getting dejected or despondent, the Quran says, فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا, that their faith grew, and they said that God is sufficient for them. It is mentioned in the books of history and biographies that after the defeat of Muslims in the Battle of Uhud, the army of the Quraysh initially returned. But when they reached the place which is called Roha, Abu Sufyan, who was their leader, and his companions thought that they had committed a great mistake in turning back so early. They should have totally routed the city of Medina too. So remember, after this battle, when they thought that they had won, so they just left the city of Medina, and they came back because Abu Sufyan thought that they should have finished off the believers and totally routed them. So on the one hand, they reorganized their army, and on the other spread the news among the Muslims through the hypocrites that they, or the Quraysh, will launch another attack on the Muslims with new arsenals and armory. And when Prophet Muhammad came to know of this, he asked people to prepare to go in pursuit of the army. And only those people were allowed in this army who had participated in the battle, in the first day's battle. And this caution, it seems, was exercised to keep the stains of the hypocrites away from this battle. Prophet Muhammad went in pursuit of Abu Sufyan with some of his devoted companions, and he went as far as the famous place which we all know as Hamra al-Asad, which is about 8 or 9 miles from Medina. So when Abu Sufyan saw the grit and courage of the Muslims was unchanged, and in spite of this defeat, at the behest of the Prophet, they had come back, he changed his intention, and then, of course, the Muslims, they also successfully returned. So this is behind this is a historical data that we know as far as these verses are concerned. So وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَفَضْلٍ لَمْ يَمْسَسْهُمْ سُوءٌ وَاتَّبَعُوا رِضْوَانَ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَظِيمٍ. Thus they returned from this campaign with God's grace and bounty. No harm befell them, and they sought God's pleasure, and in reality God's bounty is great. So when they went in pursuit, and Abu Sufyan, when they saw this courage and their morale, he did not dare come back, and he actually went away, and Muslims also returned. And as the Quran says, that this return was فَانْقَلَبُوا بِنِعْمَةٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ. This return was with God's grace and bounty, and they sought God's pleasure, And Wallahu zu fadlin azim, and indeed God is great in His bounty. Innama zalikum ash-shaytanu yukhawwifu awliya'ahu fala takhafuhum wa khafuni in kuntum mu'minin. So now it would have become obvious, now that it has become obvious that it is Satan who had been threatening you to fear his companions, so have no fear of them, fear me only if you are true believers. So basically what is being said here is that, remember, it is Satan who made them stumble in this way. Of course, Satan is referring, the mention of Satan here is a reference to the fact that as far as this whole campaign was concerned, when he whispered his evil suggestions and his sinister suggestions in the hearts of the Muslims, that you will be killed if you go out and fight outside of the city and you better stay back. So we know how this affected the morale when some of the hypocrites, they did not go out. And also we know that Abdullah ibn Ubay, the famous hypocrite, he when he thought that his suggestion and advice had not been paid heed to, so he also deserted the Muslim army with 300 of his strong men. So this could have caused a big blow, and of course the morale of the Muslims in this matter was dented by this desertion. But as you can see, that the Almighty has said that the real cause of the defeat was not this, but it was initially that, as the Quran has said, min ba'di ma arakum ma tuhibbun, or min ba'di ma asaytum, that you had disobeyed the Prophet and you had differed amongst yourselves whether to leave this battle post or not, and this cost you defeat or the battle in itself. So that is what is in the background. And then it says, وَلَا يَحْسُنْكَ الَّذِينَ يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْكُفْرِ إِنَّهُمْ لَنْ يَضُرُّوا اللَّهَ شَيْئًا يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَلَّا يَجْعَلَ لَهُمْ حَظًّا فِي الْآخِرَةِ وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ عَظِيمٌ. And, O Prophet, let not these people who at this time are fervent in their disbelief become a means of sorrow for you. They shall not the least be able to harm God. God intends that they have no share in the hereafter. They are criminals, and a grievous punishment awaits them there. So again, this, you can see the tone of assurance is slightly enhancing as we go along. Initially, this assurance was regarding the fact that if Muslims have lost their lives in this cause, they don't. Those who are living should in no way get dejected, because these people have actually acquired the status of martyrdom. They are martyred for the cause of God, and they are not to be regarded as slain. They are in fact living in the presence of God in a certain form. And now it is being said that if these disbelievers are doing all sorts of, or playing all sorts of pranks and working mischief, and at the same time conniving with one another against Muslims, the Quran says that this should not in any way let the Prophet feel that God has left them. So it should not be a means of sorrow for them, because they are not going to be able to harm God in any way. And in fact, this is a respite that they are being given by God, so that they can do as much evil as they want to, and then once their time is finished, then the Almighty will catch them once and for all. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْكُفْرَ بِالْإِيمَانِ لَنْ يَضُرُّوا اللَّهَ شَيْئًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ أَلِيمٌ. It is a fact that all those who have bartered their faith for disbelief shall in no way be able to harm God, and for them He has prepared an extremely woeful punishment. وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ خَيْرٌ لِأَنفُسِهِمْ إِنَّمَا نُمْلِي لَهُمْ لِيَزْدَادُوا إِثْمًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ مُهِينٌ. Let not these disbelievers in any way think that the respite we are giving them is for their own good. They should know that we are giving them this respite only because they may add some more to their sins. After this, they have to come to us, and here a very humiliating punishment awaits them. A very humiliating punishment awaits them. So again, this is that other part of that assurance. At the same time, when the Prophet is being told that this is something of a temporary head that they are making, if they're thinking that they are doing something to harm God or His clan or the people who have submitted to Him, then this is just a temporary reversal that they have suffered. Ultimately, God is going to take care of them. And also, as you can see, it has said that as far as this respite which is being given to these disbelievers, they should not think that it is something good for them. This respite is being given to them so that whatever time they have, if they would like to mend themselves, yes, they have this opportunity. But more often than not, they will use this time not to reform themselves, but ultimately gain more in their sins. They will collect more sins, and then it will be once and for all that the Almighty will take them to account. And then this hikmah, this wisdom is continuing, viewers, by these words. ما كان الله ليذر المؤمنين على ما أنتم عليه حتى يميز الخبيث من الطيب وما كان الله ليطلعكم على الغيب ولكن الله يجتبي من رسله من يشاء فآمنوا بالله ورسله وإن تؤمنوا وتتقوا فلكم أجر عظيم. The trial they have faced at the time of this battle is not being understood by them. Tell them that without separating the pure from the impure, God shall never leave the Muslims the way you were in. Nor is it God's way to reveal to you what is hidden, so that after knowing the situation of their hearts, you can distinguish them. In fact, God's way is that for this He chooses those of His messengers whomsoever He wills, then to them creates such trials that distinguish all the pure from the impure. For this reason, have faith in God and His messengers, and know that if you adhere to faith and piety, you shall have a rich reward. So once again, this wisdom, this underlying wisdom in the loss that was suffered by the Muslims in the battle of Uhud is brought up and said that one of the reasons for this defeat, of course, was to bring people who were weak in faith, whose faith actually bordered on hypocrisy, to the surface. They were mixed up amongst Muslims, and as we know that in the time that the messengers of God, they reform their people, this noose is slowly tightened around their necks. But then at the same time, they are exposed. People who are weak in faith, they are brought to the surface. And still, even after being exposed, it's like a warning or a final warning which is given to them. They still have a chance to mend their ways. So this battle of Uhud was something in which the weak Muslims and those whose faith was bordering on hypocrisy, they immediately were exposed and they were brought to the surface. So that is what is being said here, that it is not the way of God that He would leave people or leave these Muslims without distinguishing the pure from the impure. So what He does is that He chooses His messengers for this task, and then they are put through a trial, as was the trial of Uhud in this case. And when they pass through this trial, the good and the bad, the good and the evil, they get separated. It's like a sieve. The good pass through it and the evil are stuck in it. So this battle also proved to be a sieve, and that sieve was something which actually was instrumental in making evident to the Muslims who their actual foes were. So that's once again being reiterated here on the part of the Almighty, that remember, this is something that you have to understand. So, فَآمِنُوا بِاللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ, you must really and in spirit profess faith in God. It's not just through your tongues that you have to lay claim to faith, but it has to be in spirit. So letter and spirit, both are required. And then it is said, وَإِن تُؤْمِنُوا وَتَتَّقُوا فَلَكُمْ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ, that if you adhere to faith, you shall have if you adhere to faith and also to piety, you shall have a rich reward. وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَبْخَلُونَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ هُوَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ بَلْ هُوَ شَرٌّ لَهُمْ سَيُطَوَّقُونَ مَا بَخِلُوا بِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ. And never should those among them who show stinginess in the things which God alone has bestowed to them out of His bounty think it is good for them. No, it is a very evil thing for them. They should know that the things they have been stingy about will soon on the day of judgment be made to be worn by them as yokes. And it would be known that to God belongs the inheritance of the heavens and the earth, and God is aware of whatever you do. So once again, it is told that as far as people are concerned, they should not think that if they are not spending for the cause of God and they are being stingy, they are withholding their resources, then in any way this is something that is good for them. The Quran says, "Bal huwa sharrul lahum," it's going to be very harmful for them. And this stinginess that they are showing, it's going to appear on the day of judgment in the form of yokes around their necks, and that will be something that they'll have to reckon with in a way that they will not be able to negotiate it, they will not be able to come out of it. And the reason is that the power and might of the Almighty is going to be facing them on the day of judgment. In this world, they were given respite. In this world, they had the opportunity. But this would not happen when they reach the presence of God. وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاثُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ, the inheritance of the heavens and the earth, they belong to Him. He is the owner of His kingdom. And now that you are in His presence, He is going to sternly deal with you. وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ خَبِيرٌ, and God knows, He's fully aware of what you do. لقد سمع الله قول الذين قالوا إن الله فقير ونحن أغنياء سنكتب ما قالوا وقتلهم الأنبياء بغير حق ونقول ذوقوا عذاب الحريق ذلك بما قدمت أيديكم وأن الله ليس بظلام للعبيد. God has heard the words of those who have said, God is poor and we are rich. These words of theirs we shall record, and we have also written down their slaying of the prophets unjustly. And on the day of judgment we shall tell them, taste now the torment of the fire. This is the reward of what you had sent forward with your hands, and because God is not unjust to His servants in the slightest of ways. So you see, as the Quran has clearly said, that the way these people are going to talk about the believers, the way they are going to make fun of them, this is something that is going to happen, and therefore they must not in any way pay heed to them. And also, when the Almighty had said that He would like the believers to spend out of their pockets, and they would like to be given, or God would like to be given a loan, as we know, the Quran has often said that in order to motivate Muslims, it is said that if you spend for the cause of God, whenever the need arises, then it is like a loan to God. He's going to return that loan manifold. So, God does not need that loan, but it is just to show His favor that He tells His people that you can give me this loan and I'm going to repay it back. So this is something that made the hypocrites remark that maybe God is someone who is poor, because that is why He's asking for loan. And nahnu aghniya, and we are rich. So this is like a very stern and a very harsh comment on the part of God when He says, سَنَكْتُبُ مَا كَالُوا وَقَتْلَهُمُ الْأَنْبِيَاء. These words of theirs which say that God is poor and we are rich, the Almighty says we are going to record them. And not only this, we will also record the fact that they have been killing prophets unjustly. We know Zakaria, Yahya, and some of the other prophets, how they were brutally put to death by the Israelites is a very dark chapter of their history. And the Quran says, we will tell them on the day of judgment, taste now the torment of the fire, and this is the reward of what you had sent with your hands, sent forward with your hands, of course, which means that if you are facing this retribution, it's not something that you can ascribe to God's oppression. It is something that you have earned for your own selves. الذين قالوا إن الله أهدى إلينا ألا نؤمن لرسول حتى يأتينا بقربان تأكله النار قل قد جاءكم رسل من قبلي بالبينات فبالذي قلتم فلم قتلتموهم إن كنتم صادقين. These people who have declared, God has directed us to not believe in any messenger unless a fire descending from the heavens consumes an offering made by him before us. Tell them, many messengers before me have come to you with veritable signs and have also brought the sign you are demanding. Then why did you slay them, if what you say be true? So one of the pranks and excuses, of course being a lame excuse, is that these people would say that we will not believe in these messengers unless they present an animal from as a sacrifice, and then the fire should descend from heavens and consume them. And we know from history, we know from the Bible that this was something which is described at a number of places in the Old Testament. And this was one of the ways which would be God's communication to his people, that their sacrifice, their animal sacrifice, is accepted. So we know from the Bible that when they would slaughter their animals and their sacrifice would be accepted, a fire would descend from the heavens and it would just consume that sacrifice. And this would actually signify the fact that that offering had been accepted by God. So this is exactly the pretext that they had in mind, that they said that we will only believe in this messenger if the same thing happens again. So they are being told that if you demand this, then don't forget that this happened in the past, and this is something that is not new. And not only did these signs which they are demanding, they came with earlier messengers. So not only what they are demanding, they came with these messengers, but also other miracles were shown to them. But what happened was they still did not believe. So that is why the Quran says, فَلِمَ قَتَلْتُمُوهُمْ إِن كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. And in spite of seeing all this, why did you end up killing these messengers? And then it is said, فَإِن كَذَّبُوكَ فَقَدْ كُذِّبَ رُسُلٌ مِّن قَبْلِكَ جَاءُوا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَالزُّبُرِ وَالْكِتَابِ الْمُنِيرِ. For this reason, O Prophet, if they reject you, then this is no matter of amazement. Many messengers have been rejected in this manner before you, who had come with veritable signs, scriptures, and a radiant book. So once again, this assurance, if you can clearly see and read in between the lines, this is basically an assurance being sounded from the previous verses, and it is continuing. And the Prophet is being told that if they are denying you, if they are rejecting you, you don't have to be in any way show any anxiety or worry. This should not be any matter of amazement. So because if you think and you look in history, you're not the only one who was denied. There were a number of messengers. Not only those messengers came with veritable signs, very clear signs, they came with books of God, they came with the scriptures, and they were still denied. So if they deny you, then it should not be any cause of wonder. It should not be a source of amazement to you. This has been the attitude of the people in the past as well. كل نفس ذائقة الموت وإنما توفون أجوركم يوم القيامة فمن زحزح عن النار وأدخل الجنة فقد فاز وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Wait and tell them, and let them wait as well. Every soul has to taste death, and you shall receive your reward, your full reward, only on the day of resurrection. Then whoever is spared from hell and is admitted to paradise is truly successful, and the life of this world is nothing but a deceptive deal. Illa mata'ul ghurur. So once again, the believers are told that if this death has taken place, if people have been martyred in the cause of God or for the cause of God, there should not be any cause of consternation amongst them, because every single person who has come in this world, he's bound to go away. Kullu nafsin za'ikatul maut. So this is not something to be feared about, but what is something to be feared about is what you will bring forth on the day of judgment. So it is said, فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ فَقَدْ فَازَ. So the real success is not the success in this world, but real success is success in the next world, in which if a person is able to evade the fire of hell and he is able to enter paradise, then this is real success. This is real success. And it is then said, وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. And the life of this world is nothing but a deceptive deal. Again, signaling the fact that as far as this world is concerned, if a person continues to entangle himself and engage himself in the pleasures of this world and just forgets about his responsibilities towards God, towards morality, then this is going to be a deceptive deal for him. He could have used this opportunity which the Almighty has provided him to gain high reward in the reckoning that's going to take place in the hereafter. But instead of doing that, he is falling for these paltry pleasures, these trivial pleasures of life. So viewers, we're going to end our translation here and tafsir here, and once you have any questions and I've answered them, I would like to do the literal and idiomatic translation of the passage that we have covered.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Our first question comes from Shiraz Ahmed. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, Shehzad bhai. Shehzad bhai, I have a question. The Quran has extensively discussed hypocrites.
Mhm.
Now, at the time of Prophet Muhammad, the final messenger of God, in Surah Tawbah, polytheists were dealt with. We are not going to discuss the details.
Mhm.
People of the book, their punishment was subscribed. But
Mhm.
despite of being extremely critical about the hypocrites, we observe that they were never given any collective punishment in this world, even though it's explicitly
Right.
mentioned in Surah Tawbah that
Mhm.
they will be the one who will receive the worst punishment in the hellfire.
Mm.
Was it because of political reasons, because on face value they were Muslims, or can you just elaborate on that? Why
Yeah.
no collective punishment was ever given to them?
So yes, although this question would not relate to the passage that we are discussing, but nevertheless, it's a very important question, and it is this question which has actually been the source of a lot of, future issues that had arisen in the times of Prophet Muhammad, right after he passed away, amongst the times of the Sahaba, and in later times as well. So it does seem that as far as these hypocrites were concerned, ultimately they were never given this reckoning. So they were warned, and it does seem that the extreme nature to which the Almighty wanted them to reach, after which He would actually take account of them, it never happened. And they remained below that threshold level, because had they reached that level, the reckoning would have definitely taken place. So it's like saying that they were very close to that threshold level, which would have warranted their worldly retribution. But it seems that there was still some chance, and there was still some opportunity, and there was still something that was left in them which did not warrant that extreme punishment. So that is why this never took place. So remember, the Almighty only delivers this punishment when the factor of Itmam al-Hujjah reaches the ultimate extent in which the other person is left with no excuse. But it does seem in their case that small threshold still remained. Of course, this is something which is beyond our own comprehension. At times we do think that, well, had these people been taken into account and had they been dealt with firmly, a lot of trials and tribulations which in fact occurred right after Prophet Muhammad's passing away, in the times of the rightly guided caliphs, how except Abu Bakr, the rest of the three were slain, and how we know that a number of things arose, and how certain political issues arose, and also we know that one of the greatest sources of trial, I would say, that arose as a result of these hypocrites being left intact was the trial of concoction of hadith literature, was the concoction of or the effort in which they expended and took away the Muslims from the Quran directly. So that is of course an aftermath, and that perhaps is not directly related to your question, but the simple answer is that threshold which would have warranted that punishment still needed to be breached, and it seems that it did not get breached.
Shehzad, the reason I asked this question because in today's session we discuss the Battle of Ohud, right? In which hypocrites played a critical part. 300 of
Right.
them almost
Mhm.
returned to Medina. Now, in Quran, at one point in time, Allah said to Prophet Muhammad, even if you're going to pray for them 70 times a day, I will accept your prayers. So when I read those verses as a Muslim, what other threshold is required that if a prophet, one of the mightiest messenger in the history of mankind, is going to pray for their salvation 70 times a day, God is saying, I'm not going to accept it, then anyways, that was the point in my mind. I apologize. I thought because it's in my observation, it was related to today's session, and
That's fine. That is okay. That's okay. It still is an important question. So you see, those verses which relate to the prayer of the Prophet and the Almighty telling them that He's not going to forgive them, basically relates to their collectivity. I mean, it says that if you do so, having certain people in mind, then God is not going to forgive them. But remember, this is still something as far as the Quran is concerned, that although the Almighty had given this his intention very clearly stated in the Quran that He is not going to forgive them, but it still seems that there was some some threshold left, because you see, had that threshold been breached, it would have been against the law of God to not punish them. I mean, there would have been no reason to just, let go of them. They were let go of scot-free, we know that. So you see, if you look at the law of God, it on the one hand, it gives you this clear picture that if that threshold is breached, then no one, whether he's a idolater, whether he's even whatever faith he belongs to, then he will be definitely dealt with in a stern way and punished. So I think the way to reconcile the prayer is that was made at the time when the Prophet, of course, we know from history that he wanted to seek forgiveness for a certain hypocrite in the times of his own times, when the fitna of the incident of Ifk had taken place, if I remember correctly. And it was on such an occasion that he was told that, there's nothing doing regarding certain people. So to me, it seems that relates to specific individuals regarding whom the Almighty had made up his mind, and had still made up his mind by that time, that they will come what may be taken into account. But as far as the whole collectivity is concerned, this as a group never reached that threshold, as did the people of the book, as did the mushrikun. I mean, look at them, they did reach that peak, and as far as the Prophet's own people are concerned, they professed faith, and a few of them were put to death because of their being active opponents and being guilty of high treason. Similarly, if you look at the people of the book, you'll also find that though many of them accepted to pay jizya and were prepared to stay subservient, but still some of them were put to death, like Ka'b ibn Ashraf. So active opponents were dealt with that way. So in the case of the hypocrites, it does seem to me that in that collectivity, there were individuals maybe regarding whom the Almighty was still saying that He's not going to forgive them. But as a whole, as a collectivity, it does seem to me that threshold could not have been reached. Otherwise, there was no reason for them to not be punished.
Thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. The next question asks, is the life after their demise, before the day of resurrection, mentioned in these verses? Is that specific to the Sahaba?
No, it does not. It refers to all people who achieve martyrdom. So basically, as far as living after death or having a form of life after death is concerned, it relates to every person who sacrifices his life while bearing witness to the truth, and he becomes a martyr for the cause of God. And so every martyr would have the same fate, and as I said, the rest of us would be put to sleep, but the martyrs, they would not be sleeping in the land of Barzakh. They would have a certain amount of awakening. They would wake in a certain way. We would not know that. And not only that, the Quran says, yurzaqoon, they would be fed by the Almighty from His blessings. And of course, this would mean that in some way or the other, they would receive these glad tidings, they would be blessed by the Almighty, but the details would not be known to us.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I had a question regarding the weak Muslims or people with weak faith that were hypocrites too. Is that specific to the time of Prophet Muhammad, or does that also apply today? Because it will be hard to judge someone's faith.
Yeah. So you see, hypocrisy is present at all times, today, yesterday, tomorrow, in the time of the Prophet. The only difference is that in the times of the Prophet, you can pinpoint the hypocrites, because the Almighty is now communicating to you and telling you that this person in his own heart is different from what he's appearing from outside. So we were able to identify the hypocrites in the times of the Prophet, because it was the Almighty who was actually identifying them. Today also these people exist, but we have no means to identifying them. We cannot identify them because we don't know whether someone is posing from outside and he or she is different from inside. That is God's domain. And in the times of God's messengers, because the institution of Wahi was in place, so He communicated this fact to His messengers. But today, in spite of these people existing, we cannot pinpoint them.
So is it correct to assume that this has nothing to do with the weakness of faith, but rather just the hypocrisy itself?
You see, the weakness of faith itself is a cause of that hypocrisy. So remember, hypocrisy has a number of forms. You are very thoroughly a staunch hypocrite, which means that now you have a double face. But then there is also this weakness which makes you sway from one side to another. And that swaying also, I mean, you're here and then you're there, and you're here and then you're there. So that is because you have that weak faith and you just continue to vacillate from one to the other. So weak Muslims do also have this trait, I would say. And today, as I say, that we cannot call any person to be a hypocrite. Hypocrisy is something that in principle can be discussed, but we cannot label a particular person because, as I said, this is something which only God can pinpoint.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
As-salamu, sir. Sir, strong
Right.
faith is only achieved by nafil ibadat, not by the farz ibadat.
This is no rule of This is no rule of thumb. I mean, as far as strong faith is concerned, it is dependent on a number of things: how strongly connected you are to God, how you appreciate His dealings with His people, how grateful you are, how you are able to understand that if you have done something wrong, then forgiveness is something that has to be asked by you. All the ways which make you strongly connected to God, they are a means to enhance your faith. And this faith is always going to waver. We human beings, we cannot stay at the same level. So when we are on a high, so to speak, it is because maybe right before that we were in the mosque, or maybe we were sitting in the company of a pious individual, or maybe we had read the Quran, or maybe something had inspired us. So these are a number of things that could have happened. So these are the factors that motivate us, and they are a cause of enhancing our faith. But once those factors diminish or disappear, once again our faith comes down, and we are in need of those factors once again. So you see, that is why we are told to constantly be in touch with the mosque, to constantly be in touch with good people, to constantly read the Quran with understanding, to constantly have a strong God connection. So because this is something that we are not able to maintain, that our faith dilutes and diminishes. And this is this is just because we are human beings, and as human beings we just cannot stay at that level all the time.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Shaban Ansari, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum assalam.
ये जो आपने अभी बताया कि फी सबीलिल्लाह जो भी शहीद होगा तो ये उसके लिए रिवॉर्ड है, तो जो रिवायत में जो कुछ शुहदा की अलग अलग वो होती हैं, वो भी इसमें है ये खास, ये फी सबीलिल्लाह ये जैसे उसमें है कि जो हज करते हुए फौत हो जाएं वो शहीद हैं, जो किसी बीमारी से शहीद हो जाएं वो शहीद हैं, या कोई औरत जैसे डिलीवरी के वक्त वो फौत हो जाए, तो वो उसको भी थोड़ा सा बताइएगा कि क्या वो।
You see, this is again something which is mentioned in certain narratives, that if a person dies or is drowned, then he's a shaheed or he's a martyr. Again, this is a very, very common problem in understanding hadith, and that is that if you rely on a single variant text of a hadith, then you would often be misled. So if you collect all these variant texts, you will come to realize that basically one word is missing in many of these narratives, which is at times found in some other narrative, and that is fi sabilillah, which means if you drown, it's not just drowning that's going to earn you martyrdom. It is that you set off for the battle and you were not able to reach the battle and you drowned on the way, or you set off for the battle and you were not able to reach the battle place and actually take part in the battle, and death overtook you before that in a natural form. So basically what is being said is that once you set off for the cause of God and some calamity strikes you, and you are not, you're not martyred in the battlefield, but death comes to you outside of the battlefield. So it is for such individuals that the Almighty has extended and said that it's not just death in the battlefield that's going to earn you martyrdom. If death overtakes you before you reach the battlefield, but you've set off for the battlefield, that will also be counted as martyrdom. So that is what should be understood in the case of all these narratives. It's
जी,
not
ये
just
बिल्कुल अधूरी हम लोगों को बिल्कुल महसूस होती है, तो आज क्लियर हुई। थैंक यू।
Thank you. Shahzia, please go ahead.
Yes, Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. I have a question, just came up while with the discussion after the last question. I'm from London, Ontario. We had a family of 4 hit and run by an Islamophobic person because they were wearing a scarf.
Very sad.
They will not be martyrs?
They cannot be called martyrs. No, this is not martyrdom. I mean, this is a plain accident. Of course, the person who's put them to death, he'll be severely punished. But it's not that if they have done something wrong in their lives, then they will not be held accountable. This is a very tragic form of death, of course, very, very tragic, very horrific. But this is not going to earn them a place in paradise merely because they died in this way. I mean, that is governed by another law. Yes, if they had gone out for a particular cause in which they had made this intention that I'm going out, I mean, whatever the intention was, that I'm going out for such and such a purpose, and if my life is consumed as a result of that, then I mean, I'm going to still not withhold myself. So you see, this purpose, if that is what that was in their mind, which of course could not have been the case here, unfortunately, they cannot be regarded as martyrs or shaheed. And this is also a loosely applied term to whenever a person dies by accident. So that is an entirely different thing, and that's also a very common misconception that people think that accidental deaths are also that they are also going to earn martyrdom. That's not the case. Martyrdom is entirely a different thing. For martyrdom, you have to understand that you have come out of your house, gone for a particular cause, and on the way you have said that, well, I have now decided to put my life in danger to realize that mission of God, or to undertake whatever I have set before myself as God's compliance. So that is what earns a person martyrdom. It's not just by accident.
It's very narrow then. For example, we have friends whose families in Gaza, they were killed by bombs, and there
Yeah.
were children, there were families.
Of course, I mean, that is martyrdom. That is martyrdom, because you see, we know the Prophet has said, "Man qutila duna malihi fahuwa shaheed." The person who fights evil and persecution and protects themselves from this persecution and dies as a result. I mean, what better a form of martyrdom than you think of? So that precisely is martyrdom. But you see, this accident is something when you're walking, I mean, you're just going on the way, and an Islamophobe comes along, or maybe some other, accident takes place without, the driver could have been drunk, the driver could have been guilty of over-speeding. So these are accidental deaths, and they are very tragic ones. But in no way can they be regarded as, the people who have lost their lives could be regarded as martyrs.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much, Dr.
Jazakallah.
Saleem. Shehraz Ahmed, please go ahead.
Jalvi, I have a follow-up question on this martyrdom. Ladies who are
Mhm.
living in a multicultural society where
Mhm.
certain people are oppressive towards them, if whatever their understanding of religion is, they stick to it. For example, wearing a headscarf or whatever. And of course, they didn't know that today, if we're going to get out of our house, somebody is going to persecute us. But they know that the society or certain components of the society, they are not very good in their attitude towards those ladies. And there's always an element of risk involved. So if they persist in practicing what they consider to be Islam, why shouldn't they be considered martyrs? Because they stick to what they believe in. It's very
I mean,
similar
yeah.
to how the
So if
magician
that is,
acted in front of Pharaoh.
So if that is the cause, I mean, that is the cause of that. I mean, the person, people who were there, and they stuck to what they thought was religion, and the person who killed them was because of, I mean, the reason for that slaying or that killing was that people who belonged to a certain group of people, to a certain religion, they professed faith in the way they thought it was true. Then yes, this is something that could take that person very close to martyrdom. But as I said, ultimately this is God's domain to decide. You see, for this you have to understand that if a person is going to bear witness with his life for a certain cause of religion, and for that cause death overtakes him, then in principle we can call that person a martyr. But whether that actually took place maybe, or it was something of a conflated thing, then that is God's domain. But I mean, if all these ingredients are present the way you have mentioned them, then yes, I would say that is something very close. It might take that person very close. But again, what exactly happened and what was the scenario, that perhaps should be left to God to judge. Okay, starting off with this literal translation. وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ. Wa and la not. تَحْسَبَنَّ, you think. الَّذِينَ, those who. قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ, were killed in the way of God. Amvata, are dead. So amvat is basically the plural of mauta, and mauta of course means people who are dead. So do not think that those who have been killed in the way of God are dead. Bal, in fact, ahya, they are living. So ahya is the plural of hayyun. Inda rabbihim, inda, near rabbihim, their Lord. Yurzakun, they are being fed, they are being provided for. So what is being said is that in fact they are living with their Lord and they are being provided for by Him, which means that His blessings are reaching them. Farihina bima atahumullahu min fadlihi. Farihina, they are happy. Bima, with that. Atahum, give them. Allah, God. So they are happy with which God has given them. Min fadlihi, from His grace. Min fadlihi, from His graciousness or from His grace. Wa, and. Yastabshiruna. So yastabshiruna billazina lam yalhaqu bihim. So they are receiving glad tidings. Yastabshiruna billazina, from them. Lam yalhaqu bihim, who have as yet reached them. Lam, not. Yalhaqu, reached. Bihim, them. Min khalfihim, from those who were left behind. So they are receiving these glad tidings and pleased that God has given them with His blessing, and they are expressing them that as far as these glad tidings are concerned, Allah khawfun alayhim wala hum yahzanun. So Allah, not. Khawfun, fear. Alayhim, on them. Wa, and. La, not. Hum, they. Yahzanun, should feel sad. So, and what are these glad tidings? That they should not fear, there should be no fear on them, and there will be no sorrow on them. So, of course, fear and sorrow would leave them. So, basically, they are pleased with what God has given them of His blessings. يَسْتَبْشِرُونَ بِالَّذِينَ لَمْ يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ, and they are expressing joy about those they left behind who have not reached them. So, basically, people who are yet to reach them or who are yet to be martyred, about them they have these glad tidings that neither is there any fear for them, or nor should they be in any way be sad. Yastabshiruna bi ni'matin min Allah. Yastabshiruna means they are rejoicing. Bi ni'mat, with the favor. Min Allah, from God. So they are rejoicing with the favor of God. Wa, and. Fadl, His graciousness. So they are rejoicing in with the favor that they have received from God and from His graciousness. Wa, and. Anna, that. Allah, God. La, not. Yudhi'u, waste. Ajr al-mu'mineen, reward of the believers. And that God does not waste the reward of the believers. So, Anna, that. Allah, God. La, not. Yudhi, waste. Ajr, reward. Al-mu'mineen, believers. Allazina, those who. Astajabu li rabbihim. So, istajabu would be the way that you would read it when you read it separately. Otherwise, you would read it as allazina astajabu li rabbihim. Allazina, those who. Nastajabu lillahi, who actually said yes to God, who respond. Istajaba means to respond. Lillah, to God. Wa, and. Ar-Rasul, the messenger. Mim ba'dima, after that. Asabahumul karhu. Asaba means to reach. Hum, them. Reach them. Al-karh. Karh means any injury. So it would mean that the reward of those who have, even after being inflicted with loss, answered the call of God. So in other words, this is being implied here, that these are those people that who said yes to God, who were always responding to God and to His messenger after asabahumul karh, some injury or some wound reached them. And lillazina ahsanu minhum, that those among them. Wa, and. Ittaqaw, ahsanu minhum would mean that those who were righteous among them, who were thorough among them, and those who feared. What will be that? Ajrun azim, that there will be a great reward. Ajr, reward. Azim, great. So, ahsanu minhum wattaqaw ajrun azim would mean that those among them who were thorough in their deeds and who adhered to piety, they shall have a rich reward, they shall have a great reward. Allazina, those who, qala said, lahum, to them, annas, people. So they are those to whom people said. And what did people say? Inna an-nasa qad jama'u lakum. Inna, indeed, an-nas, people, qad, indeed, jama'u lakum, have gathered with you. Or of course it means that they have collected people against you, or they have mustered a great strength against you. Fa, therefore, ikhshawhum, fear them. Fazadahum, therefore, zadahum, increased their imana, faith. So these are those people when to whom it was said that people have gathered a lot of force against you, therefore, ikhshawhum, fear them. So instead of fearing them, what happened? Fazadahum imana. Fa, therefore, zadahum, increased their imana, faith. So instead of being scared, their faith increased. Wa, and qalu, they said, hasbunallah, enough for us God. Enough for us God. Wa, and ni'ma. Ni'ma means best. Wakil, protector. So they said that God is enough for us, and He is the best protector. And by the way, this is also a very beautiful supplication that can be picked out from this verse. And in times of stress and need, you can always recite this, Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, which means that although this has a context here, but the way it has been used here, it can be extended to all situations, which means that God is sufficient for us and He is the best of protectors. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil. Fanqalabu, therefore so if you read it separately, it would be inqalabu, but when you read it jointly, it would be fanqalabu. Fanqalabu means they returned. Be, with. Ni'ma means ni'ma or favor. Minallah, from God. So they returned with God's favor. Va, and fadl, His grace. Lam yamsashum, lam, not. Yamsashum, yamsas means touch. Hum, them. Su, harm. So they returned with God's favor and grace, such that no harm will touch them, or such that no harm actually touched them. Va, and ittabaru, and when you read it jointly, it would be wattabaru. So wattabaru would mean that they followed Rizwan Allah, the pleasure of God, the will of God. So they were in fact people who followed the will of God. Wallahu, wa, and Allah, God, Zul Fadl, has blessings. He is one who has blessings. Azim, great. So God is one who has great blessings, of course implying the fact that these blessings will reach His creatures. Innama is indeed. Zalikum, that is for you. Ash-shaytan, Satan. Yukhawwifu means he scares you. Awliya'ahu, through his companions. So it is Satan who scares you about his companions. And what does he do that? فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِي. So therefore, la, not. تَخَافُوهُمْ, fear them. Va, and khafuni, fear me. In kuntum mu'mineen, if you are believers. So idiomatically it would mean that it is Satan who scares you of his companions, or he threatens you of his companions. So do not fear them. Do not fear his companions. Wakhafuni, you fear me, which God says, fear me. In kuntum mu'mineen, if you are believers. Wala yahzunka allazina yusari'una fil kufr. Wa, and la, not. Yahzunka means it should not be a matter of grief. Allazina, for you. Allazina, those who yusari'una, who are fervent, fil kufr, in their activities of disbelief. So those who are very zealous and enthusiastic in their activities of disbelief, they should not put you in sorrow. Yahzunka would mean make you sorrowful. They should not make you sorrowful. These people who are fervent, who are very enthusiastic in their disbelief, they should not in any way make you sorrowful. Innahum, indeed them, lan, certainly not. Yadurru means harm. Allah, God. Shay'a, slightest. They will certainly not harm God in the slightest possible way. Yuridu, wants. Allah, God. God wants. Allah, that not. Yaj'ala lahum, there should be for them. Hazzan, a share. Fi, in. Al-akhirah, the hereafter. So God wants that these people should not have any share in the hereafter. Or more literally, it would mean God does not want them to have a share in the hereafter, which means that He just wants to have them doomed in the hereafter. Of course, the share here is referring to that positive share, which means that they should not have any reward in the hereafter. Wa, and lahum, for them, azab, punishment, azim, great, and for them is a great punishment. Inna, indeed, allazina, those who, ishtarau means barter, al-kufr, disbelief, bil iman, with belief. So indeed those who barter or exchange disbelief with belief, lan yadurrullaha shay'a, lan, certainly not, yadurru, harm, Allah, God, shay'a, slightest. So those who barter disbelief with belief, they will never be able to harm God in the slightest possible way. Wa, and lahum, for them, azab, punishment, alim, painful. For them will be a painful punishment. Wa, and la, not. Yahsabanna allazina kafaru. Yahsabanna, must think. Allazina, those who, kafaru, disbelieved. So those who disbelieved should not think, annama, that, numli lahum, if we are giving them respite, numli lahum, giving them respite, khairul li anfusihim, it is good for them, it is good for them. Innama numli lahum, innama, indeed, numli, we are giving them respite, we are giving respite, in fact, lahum, to them, liyazdadu, so that they can increase ithma, their sins. So if those who have disbelieved, if they are being given any respite, they should not think that it is better for them. It is khairul li anfusihim, it is good for them. It is indeed, innama numli lahum, that we are giving them respite so that they can increase their sins. Their sins continue to increase, because if they are given respite, then they will be doing more of these things. Walahum azabun muhin, wa, and lahum, for them, azab, punishment, muhin, disparaging and humiliating. So, and for them is a very humiliating and a very disparaging punishment, obviously referring to the hereafter. Ma kana Allahu liyazara al-mu'minina ala ma antum alayh, ma, not, kana Allahu, God was, liyazara, going to leave, al-mu'minina, the believers, ala, on, ma, that, antum, you, alayh, on. So God was not someone who would leave the believers on what you were, which means the way you are. I mean, He's not going to leave you the way you are. Hatta, until, yamiz, He distinguishes, al-khabis, the impure, min, from the pure. So God is not going to leave the believers the way you were on, which means that He is not going to let them be in this intermingled state that all kinds of people are in their fabric. He's going to distinguish them. Hatta yamiz al-khabisa min at-tayyib, until He is going to distinguish the good from the evil, the pure from the impure. Wa, and ma, not, kana Allahu, God was, liyutliyakum, going to inform you, ala, on, al-ghaib, the unknown. So God is also not going to inform you about the unknown. So He could have informed you about the unknown, but this He does not know. So the thing is that He knew the khabis and the tayyib, but He wanted you to know also. And for this, of course, He could have told you, He could just have informed you. So it is said that that's not God's way. He does not merely inform the pure from the impure. He does not give you this news of ghaib. What He does is, وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ يَجْتَبِي مِن رَسُولِهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. وَلَكِنَّ, in fact, Allah, God, yajtabi, selects, min rusulihi, from His messengers, man yasha, He who wants. So what what he actually does is that he selects his messengers, and through them he creates trials, and through those trials the khabith and the tayyib are distinguished. So you see how the Quran skips words which are already understood to be present. I mean, all this that I have explained is like in between the lines. So what is being said is that it is not God's way to leave people the way they are. The pure and the impure intermingled. God is not going to leave them like this. And he could have informed you out of his own knowledge. That he also does not do. So he says, Ma kan, and so it's not the way of God. He could have just informed you, but that's not going to take place. But what does he do? He actually selects messengers, whoever he wants to, and through them he creates trials, and these trials are then able to distinguish the khabith from the tayyib. So these trials then are able to demarcate the pure from the impure. You see how the Quran progresses. Fa, therefore, aminu, profess belief, billahi, in God, wa, and rusulihi, and his messengers. So profess belief in God and his messengers, wa, and in, if tu'minu, you believe, wa, and tattaqu, adhere to piety, falakum, therefore for you, ajr, reward, azim, grand. So if you believe and adhere to piety, then for you is a grand reward. وَلَا يَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ يَبْخَلُونَ بِمَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ هُوَ خَيْرًا لَهُمْ. Wa, and la, not yahsabanna, think, allazina, those who, yabkhaluna, are stingy, bima, with, atahumullah, God has given them, min fadlihi, out of his grace, huwa khairal lahum, huwa, it is khair, better, lahum, for them. So those people who are stingy regarding what God has given them from his grace, they should not think that it is better for them. Bal huwa sharrul lahum. In fact, huwa, it, shar, evil, lahum, for them. So it is evil for them. Sa is very soon. Yutawwaquna means that yokes would be, the yokes would be strung around their necks. And how would that happen? Ma bakhilu bihi, with that which you have been stingy. So sayutawwaquna ma bakhilu bihi, it's a slightly a deep construction. It means that thing about which you were stingy, that will be made a yoke around your necks. So the thing with which you were stingy, ma bakhilu bihi, sayutawwaqun. So basically it is being said is, ma bakhilu bihi sayutawwaqun. That with which you were stingy will be made to be a noose around your neck. Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the day of judgment. Basically, it's depicting their punishment. وَلِلَّهِ مِيرَاسُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Wa, and lillah, for God, miras, inheritance, as-samawat, the heavens, wa, and al-ard, the earth. So to God belongs the inheritance of the heavens and the earth. This is a very common expression. Actually, the word miras here refers to ownership. In other words, it means that God is the owner of the heavens and the earth. Wallahu bima ta'maluna khabir. Wa, and Allah, God, bima, that with, ta'maluna, you do, khabir, informed. So God is informed about what you do. La, indeed. Qad, that's also the same word with more stress. Laqad can be translated as indeed. Sami'a, heard. Allah, God. So indeed God heard. Qawla, the statement. Allazina, of those. Qalu, who said. So indeed God heard the statement of those who said. What did he say? Inna Allaha faqir. Inna, indeed, Allah, God, faqir, poor. Indeed God is poor. Wa, and nahnu, we. Aghniya, rich. So aghniya is the plural of ghani. So they said that God is faqir, God is poor. Wa nahnu aghniya, and we are rich. Sanaktubu. Sa is anqareeb, as you say in the Urdu language, which means very soon. Sanaktubu would means we will very soon write it. Ma, that, qalu, what they said. Or Another translation could be the sa here, just as connotes future, it also connotes emphasis and stress. So it could be translated as we shall certainly write down ma kalu, what they said, wa, and qatlahum, their killing, al-anbiya, of the messengers. Al-anbiya is the plural of nabi. So we will write down what they indeed we will write down what they said, and we will write down their killing of the messengers, bighayri haqq, without justification. Bighayri haqq, without justification. Wa, and naqulu, we will say, zuku, zuku means taste, azab, torment, al-hariq, the fire, and we shall say that now you taste the torment of the fire. Zalika, this is, bima, because, qaddamat, they sent forward, aidikum, their hands. So this is because what their hands sent forward. This is an expression of the Quran which actually means the deeds that they had done through their hands. Zalika bima qaddamat aidikum would mean this is because what they did or they sent forth from their hands, which is of course their deeds. Wa, and anna, that Allah, God, laysa, not, bizallam, oppressor, lil abid, to his servants. So God is not the slightest oppressor, not the slightest oppressive of his servants. Allazina qalu, though allazina, those who, qalu, said, inna, indeed, Allah, God, ahida ilayna, has asked us. And what does he ask us? Allah nu'mina li rasulin, Allah, that not, nu'mina, we shall believe, li rasulin, in the messenger, hatta, until, ya'tiyana, comes to us, bi qurbanin, on the sacrifice, ta'kuluhun nar, such that it consumes it. So unless a fire, hatta ta'tiyana bi qurbanin ta'kuluhun nar, unless comes to us a sacrifice which is consumed by the fire, which is actually consumed or totally destroyed by the fire. Qul, say, qad, indeed, ja'akum, has come to you, rusulun, messengers, min qabli, before me, bil bayyinat, with clear signs, wa, and billazi kultum, and that which you said, referring to this fire that I just explained earlier on. And so tell them that has come to them the messengers before me with clear signs, and with that, with what you have, and with that what you demanded. Falima, fa, therefore, lima, why, qataltumuhum, you kill them, in, if, kuntum, you, sadiqeen, are truthful. So if these signs and what you have demanded did come to you, then why did you not believe in it, and instead you ended up killing them, killing these messengers? And so you should answer, speak up and answer, in kuntum sadiqeen, if you are really truthful. Fa, therefore, in, if, kazzabuka, you have been denied. And of course this is referring to the Prophet. Fa, therefore, qad, indeed, kuzziba, have been denied, rusul, messengers, min qablika, before you. So if you have been rejected, or if you have been denied, so many messengers before you have also been denied, min qablika, before you. Ja'u, who came, bil bayyinat, with clear signs, wa, and az-zubur, with scriptures, wa, and al-kitab al-munir, a glowing book or a shining book. Kullu, every, nafsin, soul, za'ikatul maut, the taste of death. So every soul shall taste death. Kullu nafsin za'ikatul maut, wa, and innama, indeed, tuwaffawna, shall be given in full, ujurakum, your reward. So ujur is the plural of ajr. So you shall be given your reward in full, yawm al-qiyamah, on the day of judgment. Fa, therefore, man, he, zuhziha, was kept away, anin nar, from the fire. So he who was kept away from the fire, wa, and udkhila, was admitted, al-jannah, into paradise. faqad, so he indeed faz, succeeded. Faza, succeeded. So he who was kept away from the fire and was admitted into paradise, it was he who has succeeded. Wa, and, ma, not. Al hayatud dunya, life of this world. Illa, except. Mata, deal. Al ghurur, deceptive. Not life of this world except deal, deceptive. This is the literal translation. But idiomatically, of course, it would mean that the life of this world is only a deceptive deal. So with this, we finish off this literal and idiomatic translation of the passage, and we still have some time. So any questions regarding this passage or anything else that relates to the Quran, you're very welcome to ask them.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. I had a question actually, since we're waiting for hands. So in Ayah 183, the word ahd, I just want to know what made you translate it to God asked us instead of like using ahd as a promise?
Because of the word ilah. So you see, when the preposition with ahda is ilah, it actually, what we call, it's a tazmeen in the Arabic language, which means there is a verb found within this verb, which encompasses the meaning of asking someone. So ahida ilayna would mean to bound someone, to direct someone to do something. So that is how we translate it, because the preposition ilah, it does not collocate with ahida. I mean, it does not normally come with ahida. So what happens is that there is another verb between ahida and ilah with which that proposition collocates, which is, I mean, in harmony with that. And that is what has made us translate this word in this way. Basically, it's the lack of harmony between the verb and its preposition. So ahida ilah is, there is no such thing as ahida ilah. So there is something in between with which the word ilah actually collocates, and that is to ask someone, to bind someone to do something.
So it's kind of still giving the meaning of a promise because you're
Yes.
asking someone to do something.
Yeah.
But
Because now it gives you the meaning of not just a promise, it's like making you responsible of something, that you must do this.
thank you so much. This is awesome. Shiraz Ahmed, please go ahead.
Can I take the last one, because my question is not related to this chapter but some other
Oh,
chapter?
Perfect. Akram Bhatti, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam.
So in Quran Pak, Allah Ta'ala uses the word lil abid and lil ibad. They both are plural abd. So what's the difference?
There's no difference, just as there are words which have more than one plural. So the Quran often uses these plurals in accordance with the rhyme of the verse, because the rhyme in this case was more conducive to use it as abid, so the word abid was used. Otherwise, there's absolutely no difference. This is a very common phenomenon in every language. A single word may have two plurals or even three at times.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, sir. That's it.
Thank you. Noshad Shafkat, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Dr. Sab, the prayer that you pointed out, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, that is
Yes.
also the prayer of Hazrat Ibrahim alayhi salam, I believe.
Correct.
This is just to wish you a bon voyage and a very safe and pleasant
thank you.
journey and a very successful one, inshallah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We have another question that's asking, which book are you using to translate these verses?
Yes, yeah. Which book am I using? I mean, this is my own translation. This is basically a translation of my Ustaz's translation. So it is my translation of how Ghamidi Saab has translated the Quran in Urdu. So this is basically the English translation of his Urdu translation.
And if somebody would like to have these translations, where can they find them?
So they are. I mean, they are already published, and I believe wherever we have chapters of Al-Mawrid in different cities of our country, Pakistan, and in other places of the world like the UK, US, Canada, India, and Australia, these are places where there are chapters, and they have all these books.
You can order from Al-Mawrid. I did. It's a translation by Dr. Shehzad Saleem. translate Quran. So you can get it.
So yes, I think that's another thing that you can order from a website.
Yeah. And also you have the Ghamidi app, which has the Quran with the translation and
Correct.
extra notes if you'd like to have it on your phone at all times. Shiraz Ahmed, please go ahead.
The last question actually made me smile. Which book Shehzad Saleem is using to read this translation? Anyway, Shehzad bhai, in Surah Qamar chapter 24, the word is Shakul Qamar, right? So somebody said or shared their opinion that this is intransitive verb. So it removes any external object out of it. So we cannot say that God split moon into two. What are your comments on this?
Well, I think this is, yes, I do understand. Even if it is intransitive, I mean, the word intransitive, as we call it, is lazim in the Arabic language. Any person can make this case out of it that although it rent apart out of his own self, I mean, it just struck out into two pieces or maybe more, just about momentarily. So someone can argue, but this happened because of the will of God. So I mean, merely having this intransitive word is not enough, sufficient evidence to negate people who hold the other view. I think more evident is the next part of the word, which says, وَإِن يَرَوْا آيَةً يُعْرِضُوا وَيَقُولُوا سِحْرٌ مُسْتَمِرٌ. And whenever they'll see a sign, they will say that's just a magic that is being handed down from the past. So the word itself, I mean, the verse itself is sufficient to give us this picture that it's not a future event, it's a past event. And whatever sign they will see, they'll just going to ascribe it to magic. So they saw this sign and they said it's magic. And in future also, if you give them another sign, they'll say it's magic. So I think a more appropriate way to answer people who think that this is not the case is the verse itself. Otherwise, inshaqqa is not sufficient to regard it to be a phenomena in which, I mean, there was no external thing that happened like the Prophet pointing towards it, and it just happened at God's behest. Because someone could always argue that if it did split apart, it could have been because of God's directive.
Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Be safe and come back soon.
Inshallah.
Thank you.
I'll be
And
back.
inshallah, we have about 5 more minutes. If we have any other non-topic related questions, we can take those. Otherwise, we will be ending. Oh, I see a raised hands. Noshad Shafqat, please go ahead.
Dr. Sab, I'd like to ask, when we sit in namaz and we raise our finger when we read the Attahiyat, there are some opinions, for example, Maulana Shah said that we should move it as if we are saying no, and during the entire Attahiyat. Others, they keep on moving it up and down, and others hold it upright. What is the correct position on this?
Well, recently, I think that our teacher, Ustaz Ghamidi, has given his view. I mean, this was just about a couple of weeks ago that he has said that in his own research, previously he had a different opinion. You might have seen it in his book. But if I remember correctly, because I also just heard it for the first time a couple of weeks ago, he says that basically this raising of the finger is a substitute for invoking God or supplicating before Him. So when you are basically raising your finger, as people think, it's not the shahud part, or it's not that you're saying that God is one. So this was an ancient practice also, and one of the narratives actually clearly tells this as well, that when you raise your finger like this, basically, it is a substitute for your supplication or invocation before God. It's like, because the whole of the Attahiyat we know is a place in which you supplicate before God, you have the chance to talk to God in your own words also. So basically, it's like a optional practice, but it substitutes, I mean, like raising your hands. Instead of raising your hands and supplicating before Him in the prayer, if you just do this, it is like a surrogate of supplicating before God. So that is what he opined, and I have yet to actually examine what he said, because he did say that one of the narratives of the Prophet that he had recently come across maybe explicitly says this. So I've just given you this clue that if you have, if you are interested, maybe you can find out more about this by just looking at the details of this narrative.
Thank you.
Imran, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad. Barakallah feek for all the explanation. I have a quick question. You've given us a name of a book if one needs to look into the biblical, narrations or quotes. But what about any translation that has some grammar component to it, so that while you're reading, you can also learn more about grammar?
Yes.
Any thoughts?
Yeah. Oh yes, there are a number of books on this, but unfortunately all of them are in Arabic that I know of, and I don't think there has ever been a work in the Urdu or English languages in which grammar has been explained. But there are several. I have them in my library. There are several in our Arabic software programs in which every single verse of the Quran is grammatically analyzed. If you're well versed with Arabic language, then of course it's very easy to consult. Otherwise, maybe you need to just Google and find out if there has been a translation of these things, or maybe someone has originally written something in the English or Urdu language in which the grammatical parsing of, we call it parsing. Parsing means analysis. So the grammatical parsing of the sentences of the Quran has been done. So I'm not aware of any work in the Urdu or English language, because primarily we don't work with these languages when we are talking about the Quran. But I'm sure if you just look at Google Scholar for that. So just as we have Google, we also have Google Scholar. Just type this and maybe you get something out of it.
Sir, yeah. I have grammatical analysis done by Dr. Abdul Salam. Is in Urdu. Is every the whole Quran is done. It's called Talim al-Quran by Dr. Abdul Salam.
Okay. Where has it been published? Who has published this?
I don't know, but I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, that's fine. Okay. So I think if you've downloaded it, then it must be available on the internet. Maybe you can just type this word Abdul Salam and grammatical translation and just access it.
Yes.
Oh, sure. No, thank you very much. No, I do have a Nur al-Yaqeen that has the Arabic grammar in it, and I've done some Nahu and Sarf. But what concise or Arabic sources do you have, or should I?
So if you just type one thing, Arabul Quran, just type one thing. So you're going to get a whole genre of books on Arabul Quran. Which are not just books which analyze the Arab, they also look at all sorts of grammatical construction. One of the most famous ones is called Amla Ma Manna Bir Rahman by Ukbari. So that's just a single volume. It's a very concise work, very, very nicely done work, but it's slightly, it's advanced work. It's advanced Arabic. So if you go, and it's also freely available, I think, on the internet as well. So it's called Imla Ma Manna Bihir Rahman by Abu Ahmed al-Ukbari. I can give you more details about it.
No, I'll look it up, inshallah. Okay, Barakallah feek. Thank you very much.
Sir Faraz Ahmed, please go ahead. Please try to keep your question concise. We're almost out of time.
अस्सलामुअलैकुम डॉक्टर साहब, बस मैं शॉर्टली एक सवाल था कि ये सूरह बकरा के 155 आए थे जिसमें ये कहा गया है औज़ुबिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बेशक हम तुम्हारा इम्तिहान करेंगे किसी कदर खौफ से, भूख से और मालों से और जानों से और फलों की कमी से और इनसे साबित कर। अच्छा, दूसरी जगह पे सूरह शूरा की एक आयत है, आयत नंबर 30 है, जिसमें ये कहा गया है कि और जो मुसीबत भी तुमको पहुंचती है वो तुम्हारे करतूतों की बदौलत पहुंचती है और तुम्हारी बहुत सी बुराइयों से दरगुजर भी। तो इसमें क्या बात सही क्या है इसको?
Actually, yes, I do understand your question. No, they are not contradictory, and I have explained this on certain occasions also. You see, for the Quraysh and for the people of the who are the adversaries of the Prophet himself, for them, the law was that whatever calamity would befall them would be because of their own deeds. Because for them, the reckoning was going to take place in this world. So this particular verse, Ma asabakum min musibatin fa bima kasabat aydikum, this is the one that you're talking about from Surah Shura. It relates to the people of the prophetic times who were right there in front of the Prophet and they were denying him intentionally. It does not relate to us. So, you have to understand and make a point in this regard that there are certain specific verses of the Quran that relate to the adversaries of Prophet Muhammad because of the law that is governed by them, and that is that in the times of the prophetic era, people who intentionally deny prophets of God, then calamities befall them in this world. So ma asaba min musibatin fabima kasabat aydikum. So whatever calamity strikes you, it is because of it's because of your own doing. This is the word. These are the words. And as I said, they relate to the Quraysh or the Bani Ismail, who were the addressees. As far as the Surah Baqarah's verse is concerned, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. So this is of course also a verse that addresses the Sahaba, if you look at the context, that for them it is an essential part of being part of the company of the Prophet, that they are spending, that they shall be put through these trials, and paradise is not going to come to them very easily, so they will be made to pass through these trials. So both these verses are correct, and one of them relates to the deniers of the Prophet, and the other one relates to those companions who who had professed faith in the Prophet. So none of these two actually relates to us. But to us, if you would like to have a similar verse, that is the one which is found in Surah Al-Mulk, which says لَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِالْخَيْرِ وَالشَّرِّ, which actually tells us that خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, that we have created this life of this whole process of life and death as a means of trial and test to you. So this is a more general verse which relates to all of us. I've tried to be a little oversimplify, but if you have any questions, you are most welcome to personally discuss this, because this is slightly technical. It's not that the Surah Shura verse is something which relates to all of us, and you should not believe that whatever calamity befalls you is because of your own wrongdoing. It's not something which is specifically meant for the post-prophetic era. It is meant for people who lived in the prophetic era. For them, the law was that if they do wrong, it will be because of their own fault. If some calamity befalls them, it will be because of the fact that they earned this for themselves.
So how we can apply for Pakistan, for example, in current affairs, which verse can be applied for current condition?
I mean, there are current conditions about, as I just said, that this life, the whole structure that has been created for us in this world is a means of trial and test for us. So this trial and test is something that we are passing. Some of the things that we are doing are our own. I mean, the cause is right with us. For example, I mean, to give you a more general example, if a hospital is not curing people, then we have to look at the standards of hygiene which are there. So if the standards of hygiene are not proper, obviously it's not going to cure patients, it will cause more misery. So this is another analysis, that if you are passing through some phases in life in a country or in a society, then what are the causes of that? So for that you have to see the faults that we are making, the way we are conducting ourselves, the things that we are doing, the things that we are lacking in. So that's more of a general analysis. But a broad category that we can, label on the situation is that life is like a trial. We are passing through these trials. Some of these trials are created by our own selves. Because we are not up to the mark, so because we underperform, so as a result we are put through more trials. And others, of course, are trials which are God sent, and they are meant to test our mettle.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. That was all the time we had today for this lecture. Thanks for another beautifully comprehensible lecture, and thanks to all the participants for showing up and asking really, really good questions.